everybody, to another edition in Matt's Kitchen of Legacy Chefs. And this week we're actually cooking a hearty beef, mushroom, and barley stew. Heavy-duty winter food for a heavy-duty winter. And so we're going to break away from our traditional Italian sort of recipes to something that's actually more deep Canadian. Linda put us onto this to warm up during the winter. So I'll turn this over to Matt. He can kind of point out what we're going to do. And just to remind everybody, this will be in our Legacy Chef Cookbook next year, along with your recipes that you need to remember to send in to lfsadvisors.com so your recipe can make it into our recipe book for next year. So Matt, you're up.
All right, so the ingredients we have here to make this dish, we have beef chuck, mushrooms, onions, carrots, parsnips, dried porcini mushrooms, chopped dill, garlic, barley, and beef stock. We're going to put the dried mushrooms into some boiling water to rehydrate.
Now when it's all done, we'll have some great, big, beautiful, freshly made popovers that Matt is going to show us how to make to dunk into the stew. So we'll be back in a few minutes with our next step.
All right, so we have the porcini mushrooms soaking right here. And the way you do that, you just basically boil the water. Once it boils, throw them in there and just shut the gas off. Usually let them sit about 20 minutes and it'll rehydrate. And in this pan right here, it's a Dutch oven. Basically, Dutch oven is just a big, huge cast iron pan. We're going to cook everything in this right here. And we're going to start off by braising the beef. So we have some butter. You let the pan get nice and hot because you want it to sear. Add the beef. We're going to saute this until it browns up, and once it browns up, we're going to take it and put it back in a bowl. The porcini mushrooms have been soaking for about 20 minutes, so I'm going to remove them from the water. And what we're going to do, we're going to rinse these and then we're going to chop them. Important thing, you want to keep the water from the mushroom because that's going to add the flavor to the final dish here. In the meantime, the beef sauteing. As soon as that browns up more, we're going to pull that out and we'll go to the next step. Next step, we're going to add the onions and the garlic, and we're going to saute these until they start to become translucent. And once that happens, we're going to add our mushrooms. Alright, next step, we're going to add the mushrooms. We're going to add the dried, well they were dried, the porcini mushrooms that we soaked. What we did, we rinsed them off, chopped them up. So we're going to add these. And we're going to add our fresh mushrooms as well. And what's going to happen is these cook, the water from the mushrooms is going to start to release, and when that happens, we'll show you what it looks like. Alright, what we're doing now, we're going to add that juice from the porcini mushrooms. We're going to add our stock. This is beef stock. And we're going to let this cook for about 2 hours. We're going to take this whole thing, we're going to cover it, put it in the oven for about 2 hours. Notice we didn't do the carrots or the parsnips yet. After the 2 hours, we're going to add those two, and we're going to add the barley to this and cook it for another hour. So total cooking time, about 3 hours. I'm not sure if I mentioned that in the last clip there, but what I like to do is let it come to a boil before I put it in the oven. So it's just about there. Beef's in there, mushrooms, onions. Like I said, the carrots and the parsnips aren't going to go until after probably about 2 hours. And this is just about to a boil, and we're going to put it in the oven. Alright, it's been about 2 hours. Just pull this out of the oven. And the next step, and the final step, is to add the carrots, parsnips, and barley. Just going to add it, give it a quick stir. Now we're going to put it in the oven and we're going to cook it for 1 more hour. Next thing we're going to do is the popovers to go with our beef dish we're making. They're actually pretty simple to make. Eggs, milk, butter, flour, and a little bit of salt. That's pretty much it. For the ratios, 1 pot milk to 1 pot flour, and for every half a cup, it's 1 egg. So we're going to make a 2-cup batch. So you have 2 cups of milk, which means 4 eggs and 2 cups of flour. The most important thing is to have everything room temperature. If you put it in cold, it's not going to come out good because when you put it in the oven, they want to cook very fast, and if they're cold, what'll happen, they're not going to kind of blow up and become puffy. They're just going to kind of be flat there. So you want to make sure everything's room temperature. So first thing we're going to do is mix the eggs and the milk, and I use a KitchenAid mixer. You can use a regular whisk, whatever's easy for you. First thing you want to do, you want to take the pan and we're going to put it in the oven. The oven's set at about 450. You want the pan to heat up to 450 degrees before we add the batter to the pan. Alright, first step, we're going to add the milk and we're going to add the eggs. Like I said, everything's at room temperature right now. If you want to know why the eggs are in water, a good way to bring it to room temperature real quick is just put some hot water in and let the eggs sit there, and they'll come up to room temperature pretty quick. So we're going to add this and we'll start mixing. Alright, the eggs and the milk are mixing right now. I'm going to add maybe about a tablespoon of salt to this for now. And then once it starts, you see it's starting to get like airy or puffy. Once that happens, you're going to add the flour to it. So right now, if you look kind of close, you can see there's like little bubbles in there. Once that happens, you can add our flour. Now, it looks like the batter is ready. And you're going to notice it's really not a thick batter. Kind of about the consistency of maybe like a heavy cream. Alright, so right now we're just adding a little bit of butter, maybe half a teaspoon of melted butter to the bottom. And then we're going to add our mix here. You want to fill about 3/4 of the way. And then once all these are full, we're going to put it in the oven. And the important thing is, once it goes in the oven, do not open the oven door. You want this to be the consistent temperature. I'm going to cook these probably about 20 minutes at 450, and then we're going to reduce the heat to about 375 for another 10-15 minutes so they brown up nice, and we'll see when they're done. These out. What you want to do when they come out is put a little bit of a hole in it just for the steam to escape. You can see they're real fluffy. Just let them cool down a bit and you can eat them. Alright, so we're on our 3rd hour and we're pretty much all set here. If you look here, you can see how it kind of thickened up because of the barley. The starch is kind of thickening up. It's almost like a stew. So it looks like it came out pretty good. And then we have a nice dessert that Linda made.
Yes, and this is your simple apple crisp. But the point is, you need to remember you can throw anything in an apple crisp. This one happens to have pears, cranberries, a few raspberries, little butter mixed with oats tossed on top. $3.75, half an hour, and you're done.
Alright, so here we have it, all plated. Just going to garnish it with a little bit of dill. And there you have it.